We will be defining the social exchange theory and the fundamental ideas of the rules and norms of exchange, the resources exchanged, and the relationships that emerge, and how they are conceptualized and orchestrated during an interpersonal relationship and its interactions. The intentional definition you are reading is based on the work of social psychologist John Thibot and Harold Kelly from 1959, and the sociologist George Hosmans and Richard Emerson from 1972, all of which are praised and respected for their academic contributions and research on the topic of social exchange theory. It is my understanding that social exchange theory describes a relationship in terms of the value, cost, and rewards associated with the relationship, and how social exchange involves a series of interactions that generate responsibilities and commitments. These interactions are interdependent and contingent on the actions of another person and are ultimately working towards a mutual goal and a shared outcome. It is meant to be rewarding and equitable, and with permitting circumstances likely to generate high-quality interpersonal relationships. Think of rules and norms as the guidelines of the exchange process and how they create a behavior. This could include law, ethics, policies, and procedures, but in the case of social exchange, the focus is more on interdependence and how common and compatible arrangements transpire. For another perspective, you could think of social exchange as society's customs conventions, such as holding the door for another person or walking on the right side of the sidewalk. The exchange is reflective of the individuals or groups involved in a manner that is reciprocal. Reciprocity or repayment is perhaps the most well-known exchange rule or applied universal principle of exchange because it requires a bidirectional transaction or the effects of something being given and something being returned. Reciprocal interdependence emphasizes contingent interpersonal transactions and behaviors, whereby an action by one party leads to a response by another, and how outcomes are based on a combination of efforts or actions of the involved parties. It is a self-reinforcing cycle based on consequences that reduce risk, encourages cooperation, and as a folk belief maintains universal justice. Reciprocity as a folk belief involves the cultural expectation that people get what they deserve, a sense that over time all exchanges reach a fair equilibrium. Those who are helpful will receive help in the future, and those who are unhelpful will be punished. In other words, everything works out in the end. Reciprocity excludes explicit bargaining and involves an exchange orientation based on meeting obligations. Think of this as scorekeeping, or as an exchange track record, or in general, as the expectations of reciprocity. To keep with the theme of reciprocity, I have diagrams of the water cycle and the carbon cycle. In a deeper context, consider all the intricacies of social exchange involved, such as pollution, which could be considered an unethical behavior, or condensation, which could be considered as a reciprocal trait of being reliable. Now look at all the resources being exchanged, and how their interactions are interdependent and contingent on the actions of another. There are 6 types of resources involved in social exchange. That list contains love, status, information, money, goods, and services. This list presents economic outcomes that address financial needs and tend to be tangible, and socio-emotional outcomes that deliver an emotional statement that a person is valued and or treated with dignity. Think of all these values, costs, and rewards associated with the relationship, and now visualize how they interact with the reciprocating transaction and are meant to be fulfilling and equitable. Exchanges alter the nature of relationships, and relationships alter the nature of exchanges. There are social exchange and economic exchange-based relationships, and remember that relationship and exchange are distinguishable, meaning clear enough to be recognized or identified as different within their interaction. Through advantageous and fair transactions, a strong and healthy relationship will emerge. These type of relationships evolve over time and develop trust and loyalty when they are truly reciprocal, equitable, and mutual in their goals. These type of relationships in a work environment produce effective work behavior and positive employee attitudes. Exchange ideology strengthens the relationship by involving participative decision-making, acceptance of group norms, satisfaction with training, manager-rated commitment, the effects of equal opportunity, the sensitivity of organizational politics, and job satisfaction. Peter Blau is a respected and accomplished American sociologist and theorist, and though his statement here may not reveal anything new intentionally, I want you to focus on the key word or theme of voluntary. You must realize that everything we covered is a voluntary action or behavior. One has the choice to accept, uphold, or even enforce the rules and norms of exchange. To behave reciprocally, exchange equitably and for a mutual cause, and to believe in the maintaining and development of an honest relationship. The social exchange theory is based on the central premise that the exchange of social and material resources is a fundamental form of human interaction, but one must not neglect its validity and unfairness, and the possibilities of conflict and confusion. We have all experienced a lost friendship or the frustrating work relationship. Most likely, its unraveling or uncomforting involved a social exchange that was misinterpreted, uncomplimentary, or hostile. The social exchange theory considers that the interdependent and contingent actions of another person are voluntary, but its primary beliefs are based on human morality and how social exchanges should be reflective of ethics, reciprocity, equitability, and mutual goals. The guidelines of exchange carry the expectations or communal values of trust and honor. Without these evident characteristics, a relationship could not be sustainable. Your personality integrity is interpreted and formulated from the transactions by the other person involved. In its simplicity, and whether it be for love, status, information, money, goods, and services, a fulfilling interpersonal relationship is based on the basic ability to give and take in fairness.